Hey guys, so
Uh,
this is this is Matt. I guess I'll just do a quick introduction. Um,
sure.
Matt is super cool. Okay, like I'm actually very excited. Like during announcements, he made Formfunction, but many of you who have done NFT projects probably also know like about Nifty Generator.xyz. He also built that. He also built Nifty Pixels, and also I don't own a lot of NFTs, but I definitely own Microverse. So if you ever seen like really cool, like very affordable and like just really nice design NFTs, like he's also part of that project. Uh,
I,
so yeah, so like just like give a shout out to Matt. Thank you so much for taking the time here. I know you're super busy building form function.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for organizing this, Ando. Should I just jump right in?
Yeah, just jump right in. Like we're all builders here. We like to see like what you build.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I can just let me share my screen. Um, cool. Yeah, I don't actually know like how you guys usually format these things, but basically yeah, I'm Matt. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Formfunction, and I'm kind of just going to be talking a little bit about Formfunction, like what it is and how we built it. And then I also have a section at the end, or some time at the end, where I kind of just talk more about like Solana programming, and it's more of like a this is how we like actually do things in production than going over like Anchor and like the account model and all that stuff, because I think there's a lot of resources about that already. But I think it's actually interesting to see like, okay, when you're not, kind of just writing these programs like for fun or for learning, like how are you actually testing and building and like deploying to mainnet? So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And then obviously, like I want to leave some time for questions, but if you do have any questions throughout this presentation, just feel free to kind of like interrupt and ask. This is meant to be kind of like a more casual like conversation. So yeah, and with that, I'll kind of just like get into it, but just want to say thanks again, Ando, for having me. Thanks everyone for like coming. It's great to kind of be at this Buildspace workshop. And yeah, I'll just jump right in. So a little bit of background about myself. My name is Matt. Some people also know me as Pencil Flip. I'm Pencil Flip on Twitter. I'm a software engineer and co-founder of Formfunction. And previously I was at Meta or Facebook. So when I was at Facebook, I was doing a bunch of different things. At first, I was helping on integrity, building out Facebook's content moderation platform. After that, I moved to AR/VR, where I was helping build Ray-Ban stories, the Ray-Bans with the camera and the voice assistant. And then finally, I was at Facebook's kind of like incubator org, where there's a bunch of small teams doing more 0 to 1 projects. And yeah, like Ando mentioned, been working in Web3 for, it hasn't been too long now. I think it's been like since last September when I started like really getting into it and really exploring and learning and building. And so on the side here is just like a few of the projects I've worked on. The last one actually isn't Web3, but yeah, like Microverse was a Solana NFT collection. Nifty Pixels was a NFT marketplace on Polygon where you can draw pixel art on the website and like sell it on the website as well. And then Nifty Generator is this tool that lets people generate collections without any code. So yeah, that's kind of just a brief background about myself. And then as for like what Formfunction is, it's basically a Solana NFT marketplace that's really designed for independent creators and artists. So unlike maybe the Magic Eden or Solana Art or some of these other ones, which are really focused on, like PFP collections and like doing a lot of volume and things like Solana Monkey Business or Degen Apes or like those kind of things. We're really focused more on one-of-one art and these like independent creators and artists. And our mission is really to help them make a living with NFTs. So for now, we're really just more of like a marketplace. But in the future, I think there's a ton of cool stuff we can do in terms of supporting artists and helping them make a living with NFTs, whether that be kind of helping them form their community or helping them fundraise with NFTs. I think there's just a lot of interesting opportunities in this space. And so, yeah, the site is live and you can go check it out at formfunction.xyz if you want to see the website. And so, yeah, here's just like, kind of some screenshots showing you like the kind of stuff that's on our platform. Zeno is a really talented pixel artist, and he's made some really cool stuff. Maxwell is this really talented artist who makes, these like really crazy and colorful illustrations. And so like this is just an example of some of the art that's on our platform. And as for why Solana, I'm not sure like how familiar everyone is with Solana, but I'll just kind of give like a very brief overview of why we chose it. Really, we just think it's a better blockchain for artists and creators, and also for collectors, because it's cheaper, it's faster, it's more eco-friendly, and it's also rapidly growing in terms of kind of the total number of users as well as the NFT community. And really, we think that this combination of factors makes it possible to build the best possible user experience for creators and collectors, and really kind of like try to push more into mass adoption of the NFT space. Things like Ethereum, they have kind of high barriers to entry in terms of the gas cost. And also, a lot of artists are turned off by kind of like how much energy it consumes. And so we really think Solana is just the perfect place to onboard newer artists and newer collectors and really kind of like expand the space of NFTs. And as for like why not an Ethereum L2, I kind of just threw this in here because it's a question we get sometimes. We've also built on Polygon. I mentioned Nifty Pixels. That was a pixel art NFT marketplace on Polygon. And I think there are a few kind of like negatives right now to using an Ethereum L2. For one thing, the on-ramps and off-ramps are more complicated. So like if you want to turn your USD into Matic or into, I don't know what other tokens these things use, but like into one of the L2's tokens, it's a little more complicated. There's also a lot of fragmented support. So it's like OpenSea supports Polygon, but does Rainbow Wallet support Polygon? They didn't, like a few months ago, maybe they should have. But like anyway, like not all the different apps support all the different L2s, which overall just leads to a more fragmented experience. And this is also kind of decision fatigue in terms of, oh, there's Polygon, but there's also Optimism and Arbitrum, and there's like ZK Sync. So it just leads to like a lot more complication for users. And we're all about kind of like simplifying things for users and creating a really smooth user experience. And I think Solana, in terms of that, offers kind of like more opportunity than using one of these Ethereum L2s, even though the Ethereum L2s might also be kind of like cheaper and faster. And so just like a brief, bit about how we're building Formfunction. I think the tech stack actually looks like pretty similar to maybe like a lot of other more like Web 2 websites. So the front end, React, Relay, and then we have our SDK for the program we interact with. React and Relay is just like, that's one of my favorite combinations for building front ends. Relay is a great GraphQL client. If you've never used it before, I think it's actually a lot better than things like Apollo and, Urkel and whatever. I'm a little bit biased though, because I'm from Facebook and we made Relay, but it is really great. And then for the back end, we use Hasura, which is kind of just like this SaaS that turns your Postgres database into a GraphQL API. We have a Postgres database, we have our own GraphQL server. And then on the Solana side, we forked the Metaplex auction house program. And the reason why we did this was because, for one thing, like the program just kind of like had some bugs and issues, and so we wanted to fix them. And it's a lot faster if we just like are able to fix it ourselves and like trying to contribute to the open source version. And then forking it also allows for more customization. It allows us to write better tests. It allows us to put out our own SDK and kind of have our own release cycle for the program, which is really nice when you're kind of like an early stage company and you need to move fast and iterate. And who knows, we might eventually open source it, but open sourcing also has its downsides in terms of, I think the main one is security. Like it just makes it easier to find vulnerabilities. So for now, we're closed source on that side. And then the bottom is just kind of like a bunch of SaaS that I like. Yeah, you can check those out if you're interested. And so, yeah, a few challenges that we've run into while building Formfunction. I think a big one is just like keeping our database in sync with the blockchain. And so, unlike a lot of Web 2 products where everything kind of just like flows through the company's API, like all the reads and writes go through the company server. For us, that's not true. Everything's going through the blockchain, which has obviously a lot of advantages, but it obviously also complicates some things. Like for example, let's say someone transfers an NFT using Phantom or Soulflare or whatever. We want to actually be able to show that on our website, and so that people can see it, and so that the current owner can list the NFT on secondary, which you can see actually happened here. But in order to do that, we can't just rely on the state of our database. We need to actually like be keeping it in sync with the blockchain. And this is also made more complicated by the fact that Solana transfers can happen in a lot of different ways. There's like the transfer instruction, there's the transfer checked instruction, there's instructions that just change the authority of a token account. So overall, like keeping this stuff in sync has been one of the bigger challenges. And another interesting challenge which we faced recently was showing price history from other platforms. So we're kind of like testing out right now the ability to import NFTs from other websites like Olaplex and Exchange Art into Formfunction, which is really easy actually, unless you want to display the price history, which turns out to be important for artists because they might have a bunch of pieces already on another platform, and maybe they want to show the price history to new collectors on Formfunction. And so that's kind of like the motivating reason why we built this out. I think it's a really good example of what makes Web3 so powerful. Like, you're not locked in as an artist to any one platform. You can move your art and move your collectors kind of like wherever you want to, basically, because the data is all on the blockchain. But as a company and as a product, one of the challenges is really like, okay, how do we parse Olaplex's transactions? How do we fetch them in the first place? So yeah, that's been kind of an interesting challenge, but so far it's been working out well. And there's a lot of edge cases to consider here too. Actually, like, there's a company that is also early stage that basically their mission is just to like do this for other companies, like, provide human readable transaction information about a whole variety of products. So yeah, and then I'd say like the third big challenge has really just been kind of building a delightful user experience. I think as like a kind of like a product, it's your job to abstract away a lot of the complexity of the blockchain. And so, a lot of the creators, they don't even really know what like minting an NFT means, or like they don't know what a master edition is, right? Because it's kind of like our job to abstract all that away and just make it like really simple. And one kind of like interesting thing here, which I'll call out, is Solana does have this transaction size limit where, you basically you can only create transactions that are so big before needing to split them up, which leads to kind of interesting UX experiences. So when we let creators add pieces to an on-chain collection, they can only actually add up to 3 pieces at a time, because if they added more, then we would need to split up the transaction, which we actually could do, and we might move more to this UX later, where it's like, maybe you add 10 pieces and then they just need to sign like 3 transactions. It's not ideal. It'd be nicer if they just had to sign 1 transaction for like performing what looks like 1 operation. But yeah, it's a kind of like our job to work with these limitations of the blockchain and still make it so that for the artists and creators, everything is still super easy and intuitive. So yeah, that's like a overview of Formfunction, like what we do and how we go about building some things and what some of the challenges are. I guess I'll like pause here in case anyone has questions before kind of like getting into some of this like Solana program stuff. Cool. Actually, let me.
I was just gonna jump in real
Oh yeah.
quick and tell everybody, like, hands down, like the best user experience on platforms. Like, it's not just because like I spoke to Matt for a few times, but like yeah, Formfunction is like, it's actually like a pleasure to use. Like, I get on there, I bid something, and then like the feedback, everything is just like really user friendly. So you guys should definitely check it out.
Yeah, thanks, Ando. Okay, I'm just like changing it to share my whole screen. So yeah, that was kind of just like an overview of Formfunction. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to kind of like chime in. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what we do on the Solana program side of things now. And the kind of like the approach I'm taking here is kind of just like to show people how we build programs and then like how we test them, how we deploy them, because I think there's already a lot of resources about, how to write an Anchor program, or like, how to approach Solana programming in general. But I've seen less stuff on like how, companies actually do this stuff in production. And so yeah, like the program I'm going to be looking at just as an example is this participation NFTs program. It's actually something we haven't launched yet, but we're kind of like working on right now. And basically the idea is that we want people who participate in an auction, who like, bid on the NFTs, we want them to be able to claim this participation NFT at the end, even if they don't win the auction. It kind of just like rewards them for actually participating, and it makes it a little more fun. So yeah, that's kind of like the program I'll be going over. I won't be going into like a ton of the specifics. I want to focus more on like how we actually, like tested and deployed and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of like the context for this. And I guess if you're familiar with the Metaplex gumdrop program, we're basically like forking that and modifying it and kind of like modifying it to suit our needs a little bit more, but it's still pretty similar. And so, yeah, like the rough workflow that we follow is really, first, obviously we write the program, and then also importantly, we write an SDK to interact with the program. And so, that's what we're going to end up using on the front end. We then write tests with the SDK and we run them on localnet. We publish the SDK with GitHub packages so that, we can install it in our other repos, like basically on our front end repo. And then after we kind of like integrate the SDK into our front end, then we can deploy the program to DevNet and test things end to end. We have basically like a staging environment where, the program is on DevNet, and then we have kind of like a DevNet website as well, and we can like do a bunch of manual testing and make sure that the front end and the program are interacting correctly. And then finally, once we're confident, we deploy a program to mainnet using Goki, which is basically like a wrap around the Solana CLI. And yeah, like one thing to note there is that we like basically in order to do that, you need our company ledger. So it's kind of like we just do that to make it more secure, and so that like you need this physical device in order to actually deploy or upgrade our program. And so yeah, I thought I'd just like actually go through a little bit what this looks like in code. I'm not going to go over this whole program because it's like 700 lines, but basically like this is an Anchor program, and yeah, it's not like too complicated. I think one of the interesting things about Solana is the hard part of building a Solana product. I don't really think it's writing the program. Like writing the program obviously like still takes a decent amount of work. But typically most programs are kind of like, you read some data, you write some data, you make sure things are secure, and like, people can't just pass in arbitrary accounts. But it's typically like not too complicated. So I think the barrier to entry is not actually super high. I'd say the harder part is kind of like building a great product around your programs. And so yeah, as you can see here, like this is the program part. And then what we typically like to do is we have our program and then we have our SDK. So for this, it's the Formfunction Gumdrop SDK. And this basically just provides an interface to interact with the program that we can, test and use. So it has a bunch of methods which are, for the most part, associated one-to-one with the Solana program. So we have this like claim addition TX, right? And then if you look at the program, there's a claim addition function. And so this kind of just wraps that and like lets you easily call it from your front end. We also have like close distributor, we have new distributor. And so like all these things are like, for the most part, mapping one-to-one with the program. And let's look at this one because it's one of the simpler ones. So yeah, we have this new distributor transaction. And what this does is it basically like gets the instruction and then wraps it in transaction. So this is another thing we do. We basically have like wrapper functions for all the instructions of our program, and then we can use those in our SDK. So we have a function for claim addition instruction. We have a function for a new distributor instruction. And for the most part, this is actually wrapping Anchor's own like code gen, but it's just a little bit easier to use. And it allows us to kind of like do other stuff in the functions as well. Like we can compute PDAs in the function so that the user of the SDK doesn't have to do them themselves. So it's kind of like a quality of life improvement over Anchor's own code gen. But yeah, like I think it is important to note that Anchor does code gen. They code gen two things. They code gen kind of like this TypeScript type, and this basically means that when you use their code gen, it's like strongly typed in TypeScript, which is really nice. And that's kind of like what this is. You can see that this new distributor function, which is this function is like automatically generated by Anchor. It's strongly typed. And the second thing is the IDL, and this is basically just saying like, okay, we have all these instructions. What accounts do they expect? What arguments they expect? Are the accounts supposed to be like, signers? Are they supposed to be writable, etc.? And so we can use we can use all this stuff in order to basically create this gumdrop program. And really, well, this is actually like this anchor.workspace thing is only available for testing. But basically what you do is like you construct this program, it's strongly typed because of Anchor, and then we wrap it in our own SDK. And so that's kind of like, I would say, this first step, right? For the second step, obviously it's important to write tests. It's much easier to catch things, like writing tests locally than actually like testing things end to end in your UI. And so usually what you want to do when you're writing a Anchor program is also write a bunch of tests for it. And so we have those, where are they? We have those here. And so you can see we have like a test for closing the distributor and making a new distributor. We have a test for like, basically we have tests for every instruction. And you can just run these locally. And I think the only kind of like interesting thing about this that I kind of had some issue with initially is when you're testing and you want to use like some other program, you need to actually provide the binary for it. So for in our case, our program code, it uses, where is it? Maybe it's not imported. Anyways, our program code uses this like the Metaplex program library program. And so in order to do that, you actually need to like tell the local net, like, oh, okay, like here for this address, associate this binary with it so that we can like, so that it can be used in our local tests. And so that's kind of like step number 2, we write tests using the SDK and then we run them on local net. For all these other steps, I think it's fairly like, it's not like, yeah, it's fairly straightforward. We publish the SDK with GitHub packages. So basically we just have some GitHub actions when, maybe you like push with a new tag, it'll publish the SDK and then we can like pull it into our front end with Yarn. And after that, we can, test it out in the front end manually, deploy it to DevNet, and then finally deploy it to mainnet. So that's kind of like the flow we follow for this program. And actually, some of that stuff isn't set up yet, like the deploying the SDK isn't set up yet because this is just kind of like a work in progress. But yeah, that's kind of like the main things I wanted to share about that. Actually, I think going super into like the details of the program, I can do if anyone has questions about it. But I actually think I found it more important to kind of share like, what is their actual workflow? Because there's a lot more resources about, how the programs actually work and stuff. But yeah, I'll kind of just like pause here and see if anyone has any questions about anything I've talked about so far.
Hey, actually, I have kind of one question. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of going to go back a step to when you're talking about giving kind of these NFTs for participating in a auction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how would you, I guess, prove that someone actually did participate in the auction to get this NFT? I'm not sure if you can talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. I'll just look at the code. So yeah, basically it's pretty straightforward. It's like the way a lot of NFT allow lists work, where inside of the instruction where you can claim an NFT, we basically like check that you submitted the correct Merkle proof. And so like on the blockchain, we kind of have like a Merkle root, right? And that gets updated based on like who actually bid on the auction. And then everyone who did bid is able to like submit the correct proof. And if you didn't, then you wouldn't be able to submit the proof.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Cool. Yeah, well, that's like basically most of what I had. It was pretty, I think it was like pretty short, but hopefully it gives people an idea of kind of like what we're doing at Formfunction and also like kind of how companies actually deploy these programs in production. And of course, like other companies might have kind of like different ways of doing it. This is kind of like just how we do it and a way that works for us. So yeah, I guess like I'll end it with just saying like we are hiring. If you want to help independent creators make a living with NFTs, definitely check out our hiring page. Or if anyone you know might be interested, you can like feel free to refer them. And you can find this information on the bottom of our website. And then lastly, kind of just wanted to thank everyone for tuning in, and special thanks to Ando for organizing this and setting it all up. Yeah, was there anything else that people wanted to ask about?
Hey, thank you so much for this. Yeah, I went ahead and posted your career site on the workshop chat. I think you can see the workshop chat now.
Yeah, I was having
Yeah,
some
so
problems with Discord, but I might be able to now. Hopefully, I can see
yeah,
it now.
that's yeah. Um,
Yeah, nice, nice.
I have a
so
question.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh
Might
no,
be
I
kind
was
of might
oh.
be like a super common question, but I'm kind of totally new to programming. I'm not. I've been into blockchain stuff and crypto since like 2014. I was like 9 years old, but I never I never programmed at all. However, now uh, what do you guys think is the best path to getting into Web3 as a total beginner? What do you think is
Yeah, I guess like getting into Web3 in general, or like as a developer,
as
or
a dev?
as a dev. Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say I guess Buildspace is a pretty good place to start, because it has a bunch of like good resources. Um, I guess like my main advice is kind of usually just to like try building something, whether that's on like Ethereum or on Solana or any other chain. Like, you know, go through as many resources as you need to like build something, and then you can always kind of just like reference things like while you're actually are building something, because that's really the best way to
Mm-hmm.
learn and kind of like also get more involved in the community and meet more people. So if there's some idea you have that you think is really cool, like I'd encourage you to just go try
Well,
building it, or maybe like participate in a hackathon, find a team to build it. That's a really good way to kind of like get more involved as well. um
I was
yeah, Anda, did you have anything on that?
I was just gonna quickly add, so like my background is like writing code for physics simulations. So like I do have some coding background, but if you were to ask me like to go out and build an app, like I don't like for a while I just didn't know how to. And Dorian, I actually sent you a message that's you can check out Scrimba. So like
mhm.
a good way to
Mm,
start is to like probably just like build like a simple landing page, like get the buttons to work, do a little JavaScript function, and then like from there you can like really start to expand. And then yeah, I would say finding like just having at least one friend that will do projects with you, that really
Mhm.
helps. Yeah.
I was thinking of since I go to a really big school, it's a STEM school, so there's a lot of kids that are interested in tech. Um, we started a crypto club, and
Nice.
I was thinking of making a DAO for that school, and seeing if anyone else wanted to work on it and do something cool with it. However, I don't really know. Although there are a lot of kids. Like we have a software engineering major in our school. Uh, like when in your junior year, you take junior and senior year, you take computer science classes. Although there are a lot of kids who are developers and have years of experience, I haven't been able to find anyone that was really interested in crypto or Web3, doing Web3 work in general. And I couldn't really find anyone to learn from. How would you go about navigating the community and navigating the space as
You want
a
me to answer this, Matt?
yeah, go for it. I can chime in too after you.
Yeah. I think a quick thing is just go like do the DAO project with Buildspace. Like that's a pretty straightforward one. And then I also recommend like don't feel bogged down like, oh no, I don't know what all these codes mean. Like just get it launched, and then the next time you come back to it, it's gonna make more sense. And then once you build that, like just start talking to some people on Buildspace. Like there are a lot of people who are interested in that.
I
Um,
see.
Matt, do you have anything? There's some more questions here. One of them was where the idea of foreign function comes from, and also like, did you build it all by yourself in terms of the coding part?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like the idea for form function, it's like I don't know, it kind of just arose as Catherine, my co-founder, and I were getting more involved into Solana MCs, and we didn't think there was a great place for like one-of-one creators and artists to like, like post their art. And I think Catherine was like also a big driver for it because she's an artist herself and like she had been experimenting with NFTs. She's an artist and designer, so she done some experimenting with NFTs on like OpenSea and Foundation. But obviously she liked how Solana is a little more eco-friendly and efficient and cheap, but she couldn't really like find the best place to put her work on. And so Formfunction is almost like like the place that she wish existed when she was like getting into NFTs on Solana and like where she wants to post her art. So that's kind of where the idea came from. And then as far as like building it out, I built most of it. We also had kind of like someone, like one of our friends from Facebook also, who was like helping us out, kind of like leading up to the launch, kind of helping out with some smaller features. So, and now he's actually going to join us full time. So we're super excited about that. But yeah, it was mostly he hit me, and then like I guess like he also joined in and did some of the bigger features as well, especially more recently.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really interested in getting Catherine to come on to speak, especially like, would you agree that like making a great product, oftentimes like from our perspective here is like, oh, you have to get the code, like it's all about the programming the code. But it seems like one of the things that's really good about Form Function is too like Catherine has really good design sense. So like it's like she knows how to build a product. Can you speak more to about that?
Yeah, I think like design is definitely very core to like what we do, and we really want to make something that is, both looks nice and is like easy and intuitive to use. I think a lot of things in a lot of products in general, but I feel like this also applies more so to Web3. Like things are kind of just like confusing because it's a little newer. There's all like connect your wallet, and then like, maybe if you take, if you take some of these like other marketplaces, actually, like at first, you couldn't even like mint your work on the site directly. You might need to like send them a hash list or something, or, if you look at a lot of these DeFi websites, it's pretty like, I guess like confusing as to what's going on. And so we kind of just want to make things as easy and intuitive as possible, which I really think is necessary in order to like onboard newer folks, right? Folks who are maybe not as deep into Web3 or maybe more skeptical of it. I think like good design is very key to that.
Yeah. Like I feel like when you get on Form Function, like the transition from, I guess if you want to call it like a Web2 product, Web3 product is like not drastic.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not. And I see some other questions in here too. Also, yeah, I've seen Scrimba. Scrimba is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like to answer quickly how long it took. We started building it in December, and then December we also fundraising, so that took a lot of time. And then we launched on February 4th, I think. So from kind of like starting to like launching, it took around 2 months. And then is there anything different about working with people in Web3?
Compared to
I think the
working at places
difference,
like Google.
that's an
Or
interesting question. I think the difference is probably like more pronounced about like since we're such a small company, like working at Facebook, it's really big, right? And so there's a lot of like processes and regulations, and you're kind of just, a needle in a haystack, right? Whereas working at a startup, you're like have a lot more responsibilities and ownership. Um, I don't know. Maybe one of the big Web3 differences is that everyone is just on Twitter all the time. Like, so marketing, like, it's just like Twitter, which is not nearly as true for a lot of Web2 companies. That's like one of the things that comes to mind. I'm curious if, Ando, you have any like thoughts on that too. It's an interesting question.
I feel like what's interesting is I don't know if you feel this way. A lot of people in the audience is like especially in the NFT space, one day, it's like 1 week is like a really short time period, but at the same time, it feels like forever for some reason. Like I feel like I'm in a time warp. Like if I'm following about like Web3 development. Like do you feel that way sometimes?
Oh man, yeah, I didn't mention that, but totally. Like, there's just so much stuff that happens in one day. Like every day there's some new drama or hack or something huge, right? Everyone's talking about it on Twitter. So if I don't look at Twitter for like a day, I don't even know when the last time that happened was. Maybe if I don't look at Twitter for a few hours, I'm like, what did I miss? Like, what's going on? Which is kind of fun, but it also can get really tiring, right?
Yeah. That I actually was gonna ask you a question like what do you do to kind of like tune out and relax, or do you ever do that? Given the fact that you're like doing your company right now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do that. I mean, like, so I live in SF, so earlier I was like walking around one of the parks, and that was, kind of like nice and relaxing, kind of like getting more into nature. Also just like I think exercising is another big one. So like going bouldering or playing tennis, I really like doing those. Like when I'm exercising, I like can't really think of that much other stuff because I'm like focused
Yeah,
on the task at hand. So that's always really good. Plus, like watching TV sometimes is a good way to like unwind.
you're
I'm
right.
curious, what is your answer on there?
So like lately I've been trying to like ship a lot of like community events. And so like I
Mm,
feel like especially I built the gather map and I feel like my eyes are pixelated. But I do jujitsu, so like when somebody's like trying to like break your arm or like choke you, like my mind has to focus like defending myself. So like that's what I like to do. Um yeah.
nice. Yeah.
How
Can't be
about
thinking
we
about Web3 when you're doing jujitsu. I know what you're
yeah.
saying.
How about we do one more question? Like, I know you're busy. Like, I don't want to I want to be respectful for your time of your time. So, like, the last question is by Oliver Jan. Do you think data science will have a big role in Web3?
Yeah, I definitely think it will. That's actually, yeah, that's a good question because I know like a lot more software engineers who are getting into Web3 as opposed to data scientists. Although I know a lot more software engineers in general, so maybe that's a moot point. Um, but definitely, like you can see that, like since all the data is on the blockchain, I think it raises a lot of interesting opportunities for, data analysis and analytics. So for example, like
Hmm.
Nansen and Dune and like all those things are
Right.
like kind of like really leaning into the data science or data analytics space. And even things like I don't know, I've seen like a variety of products that are kind of more focused on data, like NFT Inspect. It's this thing on like
Hmm.
you can kind of like it does like image recognition on an NFT and like tells you which NFT it is. Also like this company that's starting out that wants to do like analysis on, is an NFT a fake or like a forgery or copying something else, which, like obviously like OpenSea and Magic Eden and even us like could use. So I think there's like since the data is so available and accessible, it's really interesting. And I actually think it introduces like more opportunities for data scientists, like hobbyists, right? Because you can't really like if you're a data scientist, you can't really like, look at Facebook's data. Like you can look at a little bit of it, but it's not like their databases can just be queried. But the blockchain can just be
Yeah.
queried, and so you can do a whole ton of fun stuff.
So, like, Oliver, you actually bring a really good point. So, I'm trying to convince my, like, I mean, like, as you know, Matt, I'm in grad school, and one of my thesis that just got approved was that I was like, I want to do market analysis on NFTs on whether or not they're
Mm,
like the trading patterns are different from traditional securities or
mm.
like traditional artwork. And the first question they were just like, well, how are you going to get all this data? And I was like, well, it's on the blockchain, so I just need to like query the blockchain. So like, there's definitely a lot of opportunities there. I think like just like for you to go and mine the data and see what you come up with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, I'm excited to see how your thesis goes then. That's super interesting.
Yeah, hopefully it will go well. All right. Well, thank you so much, Matt. And like for those of you who joined in, thank you very much, and thank you for the questions. And yeah, definitely go check out Formfunction. It's like I say, like it's really cool. Like um, like try participating in the bidding. I actually think like Formfunction's bidding is really interesting. Although I have lost every single bid, like it's weird. Like one more plug about form function. If you like art and you like artists, like form function is really cool because like I get to talk to the artists. And like the other day, one like I participated in one of the first auctions and Mint Rain, he just dropped me an NFT just for appreciation. So like I get to talk to these artists, and when you lose a bid, you're actually happy because you know that the artist is getting like more for his or her work. So like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. You'll win an auction one day. I have confidence.
All right. Thank you so much, man. Like, we really appreciate you, and thank you so much for this chat. This workshop was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a bunch, Endo, for having me. And I guess like anyone, thanks everyone for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to like hit me up on Twitter. I'm at PencilFlip on Twitter. If you have any more questions, I'll just type this. But yeah, otherwise, hope everyone has a great rest of the weekend.
Yeah. Thank you very much.